Hi, Phil here from Now Spinning Magazine. This is an impromptu video looking at Paul Rodgers and Bad Company. Bad Company have at last been successfully put on the list to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The news broke today at the time of me doing this video that Paul Rodgers won't be actually performing at the ceremony, although he will be there to do a speech. This has kind of motivated me to talk a little bit about that, but also pick 15 tracks which I feel show the scope and brilliance of the Paul Rodgers led version of Bad Company. So the news at the time of me doing this video is that Paul Rodgers won't be actually performing at the ceremony as he's inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for Bad Company. The statement which came out says, this is directly from Paul from his X account, "My hope was to be at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony and to perform for the fans. But at this time I have to prioritise my health. I have no problem in singing. It's the stress of everything else. Thanks for your understanding. Simon, Kirk, with some outstanding musicians will be stepping in for me and guaranteed to rock. Paul Rodgers." I totally support Paul in his stance here. Paul has had 2 major strokes and about 11 mini strokes, and he's done that recent fantastic return to form solo album, but he has to prioritize his health. And you can imagine for someone who hasn't been performing or been on tour, the whole stress of having all those cameras on you and the performance, etc., is just probably too much, and he has to prioritize his health. My observation here is, and this is also has been brought into focus by watching the recent Aussie documentary on Paramount, where Sharon says, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, why do they wait so long to induct these fabulous musicians who have literally given hundreds of thousands of us, if not millions, of the soundtrack of our lives? That why do they wait until these musicians are in their 70s and 80s before they decide to induct them, and then expect the original band to somehow perform? I mean, I don't know what the criteria is, but Bad Company should, and same as Ozzy, they should have been in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame way before this. And I know once you get in, you know, whether it's our favourite bands like Priest and Purple, once they're in, of course, we celebrate that. But I just don't understand how it takes so long. And, you know, I might even start launching the Now Spinning Magazine Awards. You know, at least we have real fans talking about the bands that we love and have meant so much to us. Anyway, before I get sidetracked, I thought what I would do is imagine, because I can imagine that Bad Company were performing at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they didn't just have 7 minutes to do some kind of medley of their hits, but they had time to feature tracks from each of their albums during this period. I mean, many of you know that I'm a fan of Bad Company through every lineup, you know, so I also very much support the Brian Howe version of the band that never gets talked about, and I did a video about Brian a while ago. But this focus of this video is about the classic Paul Rodgers, Boz Burrell, Rick Ralphs, who's sadly no longer with us as well, and Simon Kirk version of the band. So what I'm going to do is I'm putting together an imaginary set list where they basically do tracks from each of their albums. I'm going to do it in the order of the albums that were released. So if it was a set list, you might be thinking it's going to end on the tracks from the album that's probably remembered the least, but it is what it is. But these are all tracks that I feel represent the cream of Bad Company. And because I don't want this to be something that has about 35 tracks in it, I'm keeping it to 15. Okay, 15. So I'm going to start in 1974 when the band appeared. And that album was Bad Company. simply called Bad Company. And this is the golden age where certain bands, Sabbath probably the most obvious one, where you have an album called Black Sabbath by a band called Black Sabbath, and it features a track called Black Sabbath. Well, Bad Company did that. So this is Bad Company from the album Bad Company, and I'm going to start with a track called Bad Company. I think this is their calling card. You might think that I should pick Can't Get Enough, as it was the first single, which was based on One of the Boys by Bad Company, co-written by Mick Ralphs. But no, Bad Company, that piano introduction, the ad-lib of from Paul Rodgers towards the end, and I've always said that the way Paul Rodgers does his ad-libs at the end of every track, whether it's Free or Bad Company or anything he's been involved in, is where he really lets go and sings from the heart. You know, that line, I'm young and I'm free, and it kind of just moves on, this kind of imaginary Western-based song, which of course us in the UK have got no sense of the Wild West, but I think many of us in the UK saw Bad Company, and the feel of the song means something to us, whatever we're going through in our lives. I think it is the archetypal classic Bad Company song, and absolute classic. I've never tired of it, and I think this track probably drew more people into the band than any other for this album. I've picked two more songs from this album, or from this period rather. And the second one is the B-side of Can't Get Enough. And it is Little Misfortune, which I think I've mentioned before. This was written by Paul Rodgers and Mick Ralphs. And although it's kind of a typical kind of free Bad Company kind of classic ballad, I do think it features a wonderful melody line, great guitar solo from Mick Ralphs, and just has a great feel to me. And in fact, when I bought the 2 CD deluxe version of this album, I was really buying it to have Little Misfortune on CD, because obviously it was a non-album track, which of course was all the rage back then. We had also off Straight Shooter, we had Whiskey Bottle on coming onto that. But Little Misfortune would be another song that I would love to have seen Bad Company do live. And as I said, this is my imaginary set list for Bad Company if they were all around, all of them, because we've lost Boz Burrell and we've lost Mick Ralphs. So I'm imagining that they're all together and they're playing the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they have time to do tracks from each of their classic albums. So the second track they've just done is Little Misfortune. The third one is also a really heartfelt ballad, classic song, and it's Seagull, the last track on side 2 of the first Bad Company album. It's just fabulous. I was obviously still at school when this came out, but I latched onto this then, and when I started work, Seagull was kind of one of those songs about looking for, because I was working in factories, so the idea of going down to the seaside or being away from the dirty smoky factories and stuff, and trying to follow your dream, everything, being as free as a seagull flying high in the sky. I just love that song, and always have done. It's just classic Paul Rodgers, classic Bad Company. So that's 3 from the period of the first album. 1975, Straight Shooter. I could have picked Good Loving and Bad, because that's probably one of the heaviest songs that they ever did in a way, and that was also a single. But I feel it has to be Feel Like Making Love, because I remember seeing them do this on the Ogre Whistle Test, and it's absolutely fantastic. And I love the slight slapback echo on the guitar from Mick Ralphs as that solo towards the end, as Paul Rodgers really emotionally lets rip into the chorus. And what would I pick for my next track? I'm looking at the track listing now and thinking I could have picked Shooting Star, which always has this feeling that it's about Kossoff, but I'm not. I'm going to pick Deal with the Preacher, because I think, again, this is another hard rock number. Great guitar playing from Mick Ralphs, great drumming from Kirk, great bass playing from Boz, and absolutely amazing track, especially towards the end when we have that kind of really hard-hitting drum pattern. I think it's an amazing song. But my third one from this album is the ballad, the last track on side 2, which is Call on Me. And I've picked this because, again, as I've said before with Paul Rodgers, as we reach the outer parts of the last chorus and the piano and the key drops down, and you just know now we're just going to follow this really gentle groove towards the fade. And that's where Rodgers just lands in this furrow and just sings from the heart. I don't think I'll ever stop. Every time I talk about Paul Rodgers or Free of Bad Company, I'll always mention the fades of any of the song, because that's where I always felt like I wish they could just carry on, because it's quite an interesting song, Call on Me. There were parts of it that sound quite jolly, but when it drops down to this part, you really get a sense of the emotive force and power behind Rodgers' voice, and just how soulful he is in the world of rock music. And his background in blues and soul and his influences have always come through. Such an emotional vocalist and just absolutely unique. So those are my 3 songs from Straight Shooter. Next, as we go forward to 1976 and we go to Run with the Pack. For the 3, there won't always be 3 songs necessarily from every album, but there is at the moment. On this one, these kind of selected themselves, although I could have picked some of the outliers like Honey Child and Fade Away, and also, what's the other one? Sweet Little Sister. What I've gone with is Live for the Music, because I think this sums up, for me, the power of music and how important music is in our lives and how it makes us feel, whether you were a musician or not a musician. Living for the music. It's got a wonderful rhythm, great drum pattern from Simon Kirke, great bass line from Boz, and obviously a great vocal as well. And because it segues into probably one of my favourite Bad Company songs of all time, which is Simple Man. Simple Man is just genius. It's a simple lyric that gets repeated, but it's just Simple Man, working with your hands, and freedom is the only thing. It just really, really resonates with me to this day. I think it's immaculately recorded and produced. It's timeless. I think if I was introducing anyone to Bad Company, this would be one of the songs that I would play, first of all, Simple Man. And then the next one from this album, I think I'd like them to do in this imaginary set, will be Run with the Pack, because this is just has such an epic feel to it, starting off with this really hard rock feel to it, classic Bad Company. But as we move out towards the outer reaches of the song and all the strings come in, it takes on a cinematic soundtrack feel to it. And again, Rodgers just moves into this improvisational aspect of his vocal delivery, and it is just incredible. Again, an absolutely epic song, and so beautifully produced and sounding on this record. I think at the end of this video, I'll try and sum up. I'll just try and pick a song from each album, I think. But that, as I go through this, it's making me realise just how much I love this band and these songs, really. So those are the 3 songs I'd like to be in this imaginary set as they focus on each album in turn. So that is Live for the Music, Simple Man, and Run with the Pack. The next one was a kind of a bit of a disappointment for those of us who have been buying Bad Company albums year after year. There was a gap now as we move into 1977-ish. And this one felt as if they took their eye off the ball a little bit. It didn't quite fire on all 6 cylinders. But it still had some great moments in it, especially on side one, with the opening song Burning Sky, which could be off any of the previous albums. An absolutely brilliant, fantastic track, beginning with a thunder clap of thunder and just a storm, and the way the guitar comes in, and again the solo with that phased effect, but a brilliant vocal delivery again from Rodgers. The other one from here that I would mention would be Leaving You, a typical kind of almost rolling back to the world of Free, a kind of like really bluesy hard rock song. But again, the delivery as we move towards the end of the song and the power chords come in, and the way that Rodgers turns up the emotional power of what he's singing, it really adds depth to what technically in anyone else's hands would be just a simple, not a throwaway song, but one that in someone else's hands wouldn't be seen as special as it is here, and the way that Rodgers turns it into this, I think, deep cut that really should have more exposure, really. Other songs I might have picked from here would be like Water and also Morning Sun, but those are the really two from this album that I really like, Burning Sky and Leaving You. And then they vanish until 1979 and come back with Desolation Angels, which I remember standing in the Costermonger pub in Birmingham. I didn't even know, this is a time I didn't even know there was a new Bad Company album coming out, and the DJ played the opening song, which is a Rock and Roll Fantasy. And I thought, wow, that's the best thing I've ever heard Bad Company do when it was announced it was Bad Company. You've got those kind of electronic drums, which kind of dates it a bit, because everyone started to use those around this time. But it's a great song, isn't it? And again, hypnotic kind of guitar motif from Mick Rouse for the solo part. But Rock and Roll Fantasy was a massive hit in the States, and this album really pulled Bad Company back into the limelight. And the album itself, although I really like it, when I was thinking about what would I like them to perform from this, I was thinking, well, would it be Gone, Gone, Gone or Evil Wind, the kind of rockier songs, Rhythm Machine? But no, I feel drawn towards the ballads here, and I think it would be, was it going to be Lonely for You, Early in the Morning? No, I've gone for She Brings Me Love. I think She Brings Me Love and Rock and Roll Fantasy, the two tracks that begin and end the album, are the ones I feel that sum up this period of the band the best. So those are the two I'm going to pick from this album, She Brings Me Love and Rock and Roll Fantasy, which they always, when they played live, always sounded fantastic. And then finally, Rough Diamonds. Now, if I'm saying that with Desolation Angels, I didn't really know that was coming out, I don't think anybody knew that Rough Diamonds was coming out. It just suddenly appeared. No fanfare, no advertising. It was as if like they'd done it and the record label just thought, well, they're not going to tour this. They've split up. Forget it. And it is the album that I remember when someone told me about this and they said, oh, don't bother with it, Phil. It's just not very good at all. You know, they've really lost their way, and, you know, but it does have moments. And if I were expecting them in this imaginary set they were going to do for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it would be Electric Land would be the song that I would pick from this, because I think this features one of Mick Ralph's finest guitar solos from his time in Bad Company. But I would also pick the last track on side 2, which is Racetrack. And the reason why I'd pick this is because of, again, the ad-lib at the very end, when Rodgers the whole song changes from this jolly kind of country rock aspect to a song, and then changes into this really moody, emotional piece as again Rodgers improvises over this rhythm in the background and takes it somewhere completely different, and just wanted it to go on for longer than it did. Now, I've been holding up all these 2 CD super deluxe editions, and I can't do that with Rough Diamonds because they didn't bother. They did remaster it in the end, and it sounds much better, and the only way to find the remastered version is in the Swan Song years 74 to 82, and that's where you'll find that. But it is worth getting. It's not you can still get that box set quite easily, but it's the only place where you can actually find the remastered version of Rough Diamonds. The only thing beyond that I'll mention while I'm here is the live album, Live 1977 and 79, which came out as a 2 CD set. Now, if either of these, or this itself, had come out in the 70s, this would be classed as one of the best live double albums from the 1970s. Why didn't Bad Company release a live album? We just don't know, do we? But if they had, and it sounds as good as this, it would have been huge. Right, so I said I'd try and pick songs at the very end from the ones I've chosen that sum up Bad Company for anyone who's never heard of them. I mean, you could pick the 15 tracks that I've picked to put in your playlist, but if I was going to be really focused and say this has got to be the absolutely cream of the songs, it would be Bad Company. It would be Seagull. It would be Feel Like Making Love. It would be Simple Man. It would be Run With the Pack. And Rock and Roll Fantasy. I think that would be where I'd go. And yes, someone like, what about Can't Get Enough? Okay, but because it kind of leans into it's that history of that track comes from One of the Boys by Mott the Hoople, so I kind of feel as if it was kind of reworked. Although while I'm on that tack, really, the Mott the Hoople influence is huge, because especially on the first album, because Moving On was actually a song that was demoed by Mott the Hoople, and of course the other one from this period is Ready for Love, which is also from Mott the Hoople, from All the Young Dudes. So there is a real crossover for Mott the Hoople, which is also an absolutely stunning band. Anyway, so that's my imaginary Bad Company set list, as if all the band were here to perform at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Let me know what you think. What would you have chosen for the ultimate Bad Company set list? Again, not that they're playing 2.5 hours, but about 10-15 tracks. Put it in the comments. It'd be great to hear what you've thought of. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the Now Spinning Magazine community. And if you want to become a member of the community, you can become a patron or YouTube member, and you'll get access to our Facebook group and also our WhatsApp groups as well. Remember, music is the healer and the doctor. Please take care, all of you, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.